Steve Dotto here, and today I think we have to spend some more time in email. Email has been, it's always been one of the real challenges in my life. I've been reading some recent reports that up to 50% of the average white-collar worker day is spent buried in email. And the average worker in North America checks their email 40 times a day. So our relationship with our email software had better be good because we're using it an awful lot. And we have to really learn to master the tools within our email software so we can discover some extra productivity because we obviously lose a lot of time buried in email. Now, I'm on a bit of an experiment. Starting last week, I shifted from using a standard email client. I was using Postbox on the Mac, and I started to use Gmail native in the browser as my email client. This was based on a buddy of mine who said that he was doing it just fine, and I showed you some CRM tools in our last video relating to Gmail, and so I've taken the plunge, and I've been living for the last week in Gmail. So far, I'm not doing too badly, but there were a few things that I had to do in order to make Gmail work for me as my main piece of software, as my main email software. I want to walk through a few of those steps today for you, if you're interested in doing it. Now, the first thing that we need to do or most of us will need to do, is we need to set up Gmail to receive email from multiple accounts because we all have more than one email account that we check, or most of us have more than one email account that we check. And it's not that difficult a thing, but it's also not super intuitive to do that. We have to go in and get used to the settings area within Gmail if you decide that you are going to start using Gmail as your main client, because you will be living in the settings area, at least for the first week or so as you're setting things up and getting everything organized. Now, within the settings area is the kind of the skunk works for Google and Gmail. It is called Google or Gmail Labs. This is where they say they're trying crazy experimental stuff. Well, it's not so crazy. And while it is experimental, I think they just say experimental so they don't have to actually support it if there are problems. But there are all these different tools that you can enable from Labs, and I end up using a few of these in order to allow me to use Gmail as my main software. And the one that we're going to talk about to start is this multiple inbox feature. You have to go in and you have to enable multiple inboxes. That will allow us, once you've done that, to go into your settings, go into your accounts, and allow you to then add another email address as your own. So that's what you have to do to add each of the addresses that you want to check your email for within the unified inbox within Gmail. So once you do that, you basically will just go in and put in your server and put in your password information. Once you've done that, then you have to decide which is your default email. In this particular case, default email refers to what email address most of your email will be sent from. Now you can change that and you can reset the designation at any point if you want to, but for the most part, what email address do you want represented as the email you're sending email to other people with? So you set that as your default. Now, the other thing that I did, and I'm going to head into my inbox to let you take a look at it, is I wanted to be able to make sure that I recognized, just by looking at my inbox, which email was coming from which account, because I've got a business account, I've got my Dottotech account, and then I've got a personal account. So I did that through setting up labels and setting up a rule within labels. And let me show you how we did that. I'm going to head back into my settings here for a moment. And within settings, there are filters. And this is the filter which is the one which basically tells the label to appear on my Dottotech email. And all it is a very simple filter. I'm going to go in and edit it. And all it is I just set it up so that any email that's coming into my business email account has this label attached. That's step one. It's a two-step process. Step two is, and it's really easy to do, you just go in here into your into the right-hand side, just to the right-hand side of where all of your labels are identified within the email, the left-hand pane here. So you go to the right side of the left-hand pane, and there you click on a little dropout, and that allows you to apply a color to the label. Once you've applied the color to the label, it will then automatically do that on each email that comes in, and voila, you have the ability to be able to color code and label all of the email as it comes in. And I actually go beyond that. If I've got any purchases coming in, I've been putting on these workshops. And if somebody's ordering, registering for the workshop, I want to know, so that has a nice red label, so I notice it right away so I can monitor that. So anything important you can add labels to as it comes in and make sure that you stay on top of it. So that's the first thing, labeling and setting up multiple inboxes. The next thing that I discovered I needed to do as I started to work with it is I use multiple signatures in my regular email software to be able to send out kind of canned responses to people. Especially when I do my radio show, I want to give them a list of the phone number of the radio station, my producer's contact information, and give them kind of instructions on what we do when we do an interview, so that I don't have to write an email each time saying, this is where you call, this is the number you call, this is the address of the studio, this is how long you want to show up before your interview. So I used a signature in past to do that. You only have within Gmail, you only have a single signature that you can attach to any email address. There's my signature for my main email address. So I scratched my head a little bit, did a little bit of research on Google, and came up with this workaround. And it's actually a pretty elegant workaround. In some ways, I think it's better than having multiple signatures. I had to head back into Labs. As I said, get used to this, the settings window. And within Labs, they have something called canned responses. When I enabled canned responses, then when I go to send an email, and let's compose a new email. As I go to compose that email, I've got this little selection right here, and it is right underneath the subject bar, and it allows me to choose canned responses. Now I can just highlight text and turn it into canned responses. If you're going to be sending the same email to multiple people and you want to be able to just insert it with a little personal note, you can create an on-the-fly canned response. But I've created the canned response, which is my radio details. I click on that, and you see what happens is it populates that information into the email. So I can write the personal part of the email first, select canned responses, add that, and the email goes off. That is, I think, a crucial tool in email productivity. It's a little bit of a workaround, as I said, but a very elegant workaround. The next two things that I want to talk about are kind of process related. The first is how you go about sorting your email and archiving your email. One of the things about using Gmail is they give us a tremendous amount of server space as a part of our account. And I've got a lot of emails that I've stored in Gmail, and I'm only using like 10 or 12% of the available space, and it's constantly growing. Google's constantly giving us more space. So you really don't need to archive or to throw out all that much email. You can kind of leave it all there, but you don't want it here in your inbox. So moving it into folders is one thing. But typically speaking now, what I'm doing is I'm just moving important stuff into folders, and then everything else I'm archiving. So let's pretend that this is something that actually it's an ad from Costco, so it's not important at all. But once I've read it, I actually use one of the tools that's built into I think it's one of the Active Inbox Plus tools, is I actually use it here to just click here and it automatically archives it. But once it's moved into the archive, I can then find it anytime if I need it in the future, just by clicking down on the More side in the left-hand pane, and there if you say All Mail, all of your email that you've had in and you've archived is all there. It doesn't really matter if it's not structured and organized there, because you can search on it. There's a very powerful search engine, so you can search on it if you need it. Any important email that you need, definitely put into folders, flag, tag, make sure that you've got them in some sort of structure where you can find it by navigating within your system. But then once you've done that, throw it into the archive. Keep your inbox almost empty, and don't worry about adding too much structure when you put it into the archive, because you should be able to find it again, and you never really have to throw it out from the archive. There's plenty of space within the Gmail servers for us to store pretty much as much email as we're ever going to want. The last thing that I want to talk about is checking mail. I mentioned off the top of this demo that the average white-collar worker in North America checks their email 40 times a day, which is probably too much. We probably shouldn't be checking our email that much. But occasionally, when you're waiting for something, you want to refresh your email and look at it and see exactly what's happening. In Gmail, you can't set how often it refreshes. It does it through some sort of algorithm. And the more email you get, the more often Gmail checks. But sometimes you can go 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 or 25 minutes between email checks within Gmail. And as you can see, mine is kind of popping in on a very regular basis because I get quite a bit of email. But if you need to check, refreshing the screen doesn't recheck for you. It just refreshes the screen. If you do need to check your email, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to jump back into settings. Where else, Steve, but back into settings, of course. Everything seems to happen in the settings. So we go into settings. Come on, settings, open up. Settings. There it is. And there, if you scroll down, I know exactly where this is because I was just looking at it a minute ago. Into accounts. That's it. You go into your accounts area, and then in the check mail account, you can say check email now. So that'll go in through, and it'll manually check your email. That's the workaround for checking your email manually. It's not very elegant. It's not very user friendly. But if you do need to check, that is the way to do it. I'm not sure that Gmail is the perfect tool. I think most people who live in Outlook are going to be happy in Outlook. Those of us who don't use Outlook, live on a Mac, we seem to be on a lifelong search for a great email solution. Gmail might not be a great solution, but it is a good solution. So far, it's the best one that I've been working with personally. I like Postbox. I don't like Apple Mail. I'm here and there with Thunderbird. I'm going to give Gmail a run for another month or so and see. I'll report back if it is the winner, or you'll certainly know from my demos. I hope you found this particular conversation today useful. If you have, please show us some love. How about giving us a like? And remember, you can subscribe to our videos here on YouTube so you can always be updated with what we are talking about. Sorry, this one was a little on the long side. I'm Steve Dotto, and we will see you soon.